In 2013, a neuroscientist named Gregory Burns did something no one had ever done before. He trained dogs to lie completely still inside an MRI machine. No sedation, no restraints. The dogs had to stay motionless by choice, while a giant magnetic tube scanned their brains. It took months of training. Most people thought it was impossible, but Burns pulled it off. And when the results came back, they changed everything we thought we knew about dogs. Because the scans showed something that science had never confirmed before. When a dog smells its owner, a specific part of its brain lights up. The caudate nucleus. That region is associated with positive expectations, attachment, and love. Not instinct, not hunger, not learned obedience. The dog's brain was producing a response that, in human terms, looks almost identical to what happens when a person sees someone they deeply care about. But here is the part most people skip over. The dogs were also presented with the scent of food, high-value treats. And in most of the dogs tested, the owner produced an equal or stronger response than the food. The dog's brain was saying, quite clearly, that the human mattered as much as survival itself. So the question in the title seems almost too easy to answer. Do dogs see us as family? The brain scans say yes. But the real answer is far stranger than that. Because what dogs feel toward humans is not family in any way that nature has ever produced before. It is something entirely new. And once you understand what it actually is, you will never look at your dog the same way again. Let us start with what family means in the animal kingdom. Because dogs did not learn the concept from us. In nature, family means genetics. Wolves stay with their pack because the pack is made of parents, siblings, and offspring. They share blood. They cooperate, because helping each other survive also helps their own gene survive. This is not love. This is math. Evolutionary math. A wolf does not choose its family. Biology chooses for it. Dogs came from wolves. Somewhere between 15,000 and 40,000 years ago, a population of wolves began living closer to human camps. The ones that tolerated humans got access to food scraps. The ones that tolerated humans the most got the most scraps. Over thousands of generations, those tolerant wolves became something new. They became dogs. But here's what makes that story so much stranger than people realize. Wolves raised by humans from birth, hand-fed, socialized, given every possible advantage, still do not behave like dogs around people. Researchers in Hungary raised wolves and dogs side by side in identical conditions. Same food. Same environment, same human handlers from the day they were born. The wolves grew up comfortable around humans, but they never sought human eye contact on their own. They never looked to a human for help when faced with a problem they could not solve. They never checked in. The dogs did all of those things, automatically, without being trained. A dog that has never been taught anything will still look at a human face when it is confused. A wolf raised with every advantage will not. That means the difference is not in the environment. It is in the biology. Somewhere during those thousands of years of domestication, dogs did not just learn to tolerate humans. They rewired themselves to need us. Not for food. Not for shelter. For something much harder to explain. And there's one experiment that proves this beyond any doubt. Gregory Burns, the same neuroscientist with the MRI machine, ran another test. He placed dogs in a situation where they could either follow a scent trail to food or follow a scent trail to their owner. Two paths. One led to a bowl of their favorite treat. The other led to the human they lived with. Most of the dogs chose the human. Not all, but most. And the ones that chose the human did not even hesitate. They did not sniff the food path and consider it. They went straight for the owner. Their brain scans showed the caudate nucleus firing before they even made the choice. The decision was made emotionally before it was made physically. The dog was not weighing options. It was following its deepest wiring. A creature chose a person over food. Not once. Repeatedly. Under controlled conditions. That is not obedience. That is not training. That is something no survival manual has ever been able to explain. In 2015, a Japanese researcher named Miho Nagasawa published a study that should have been front-page news everywhere. It was not. But what it found is one of the most remarkable discoveries in the history of animal science. Nagasawa studied what happens when a dog, and its owner look into each other's eyes. Not a glance, a sustained mutual gaze. And she measured the oxytocin levels in both the dog and the human before and after. Oxytocin is sometimes called the love hormone. That is an oversimplification, but the core idea is right. Oxytocin is the chemical your brain releases during bonding. Mothers produce it when they hold their newborns. Partners produce it during intimate contact. It is the chemical foundation of attachment. When a dog and its owner gazed into each other's eyes, both of their oxytocin levels rose. Not just the human, the dog's levels rose too. And here is the critical part. The longer the gaze lasted, the higher both levels climbed. It was a feedback loop. The dog's oxytocin triggered more oxytocin in the human, which triggered more eye contact, which triggered more oxytocin in the dog. This is the exact same chemical loop that exists between a human mother and her infant. The same one, not a similar one. The same biological mechanism. Dogs and humans have developed a bonding system that is chemically identical to the bond between a parent and a baby. Nagasawa tested wolves too. Wolves raised by humans, socialized from birth. The wolves did not produce the oxytocin loop. It did not happen. The mechanism exists only in dogs. It evolved specifically for the dog-human relationship and for nothing else in the natural world. So when someone says their dog is like their child, they are not being sentimental. They are being accidentally, biologically accurate. But dogs did not just rewire their brain chemistry. They changed their own faces. In 2019, a team of anatomists compared the facial muscles of dogs to the facial muscles of wolves. They found that dogs have a small muscle above their eyes that wolves do not have. It is called the levator anguli oculi medialis. That is a complicated name for a simple thing. It is the muscle that lets dogs raise their inner eyebrow. You know that look. The one where your dog tilts its head slightly and lifts its eyebrows and suddenly looks like the saddest, most innocent creature that has ever existed. That look is not random. It is not accidental. Dogs evolved that muscle specifically because it works on humans. Think about what that means. Evolution does not have intentions. It does not plan. It only keeps the traits that help an organism survive and reproduce. The fact that this eyebrow muscle exists means that, for thousands of years, dogs that could make that face had better lives. They were fed more. They were protected more. They were kept instead of abandoned. The ones that could not make that face were less likely to survive. Their lineage thinned. The expressive ones dominated. Researchers tested this at a shelter. Dogs that used the eyebrow raise more frequently were adopted faster, significantly faster. The muscle literally makes dogs look more like human infants. Larger eyes, more expressive face, more helpless appearance. And humans cannot resist it. We are biologically programmed to respond to infant-like features. Dogs found that button and pressed it until it became part of their anatomy. This means that over thousands of years, the dogs that were best at making humans feel something had a survival advantage. The ones that could trigger a nurturing response got more food, more protection, more care, and more chances to reproduce. Dogs did not learn puppy eyes. They evolved them. Their faces physically changed, generation after generation, to become better at communicating with us. No other animal on Earth has done this. No other species has reshaped its own anatomy to be more readable by humans. Cats did not do it. Horses did not do it. Not even primates, our closest genetic relatives, developed facial muscles specifically for communicating with us. Only dogs. Dogs did not just adapt to live with us. They rebuilt themselves to speak our emotional language. And we never even asked them to. Now here is where it gets heavy. If the bond is this deep, what happens when it breaks? There's a study from the ASPCA that found dogs display specific behavioral changes when their owner dies or permanently leaves. Decreased appetite, disrupted sleep, increased vocalization, searching behavior, where the dog goes to places the owner used to be and waits. Some dogs lose interest in play, in other humans, in food, for weeks or months. These are not generic stress responses. These are the same behavioral markers used to identify grief in humans. The dog is not confused. The dog is mourning. And what makes dog grief different from almost any other animal's grief is what triggers it. Elephants grieve for other elephants. Chimpanzees grieve for other chimpanzees. The grief stays within the species. Dogs grieve for a completely different species. They grieve for us, an animal that cannot understand death, that has no concept of funerals or hospitals or what it means to be gone permanently, somehow understands absence deeply enough to stop eating over it. There was a dog in Italy named Ciccio. After his owner died, Ciccio walked to the church where the funeral was held and sat outside the door. He had not been brought there. No one led him. He found it on his own. He returned to that church every single day and sat outside during services. For months, the town eventually let him inside. There was Hachiko in Japan, who waited at a train station for 9 years. Not because someone told him to, because that was where his owner used to appear. And as far as Hachiko knew, he might still appear. There was Greyfriars Bobby in Scotland, who guarded his owner's grave for 14 years until he died beside it. These stories are not exaggerations. They are not anthropomorphism. They are documented behavioral patterns from an animal whose brain produces the same attachment chemicals as a human parent bonding with a child. The grief is real. The loss is real. The waiting is real. And if you have ever felt guilty for leaving your dog at home while you go to work, the science says your guilt is not irrational. Your dog is genuinely experiencing your absence, not as boredom, as loss. A temporary, repeated loss that your dog endures every single day because it has no concept of a schedule, no understanding that you will return, and no ability to check a clock or send a text. Every time you walk out that door, as far as your dog knows, you might not come back. And every time you do come back, the relief is not casual. It is everything. But here is the question that makes this more complicated. Does every dog feel this way? What about a stray dog that has never had an owner? What about a dog that was abandoned or abused? Researchers at the University of Florida tested attachment styles in dogs using a modified version of the Ainsworth-Strange situation test. This is a test originally designed for human infants to measure how securely attached they are to their caregivers. The researchers adapted it for dogs. They found that dogs display the same attachment categories as human babies. Some dogs are securely attached, confident when their owner is present, distressed when the owner leaves, and quickly comforted when the owner returns. Some dogs are insecurely attached, clingy, anxious, unable to relax even when the owner is present. And some dogs are avoidant, seemingly indifferent to the owner coming or going. The distribution was remarkably similar to the distribution found in human infants. Dogs are not uniformly bonded to their owners. Some dogs trust deeply. Some dogs want to trust, but cannot regulate the fear. Some dogs have been hurt enough that they protect themselves by not attaching at all. That means dogs do not just love us as some generic species-wide instinct. They love us as individuals, with individual histories, individual wounds, and individual capacities for trust. A rescue dog that hides under the bed when you raise your voice is not being dramatic. It is doing the exact same thing a child does who learned that raised voices mean danger. The mechanism is the same. And stray dogs, dogs that have never had an owner, still show the biological readiness for human attachment. Their caudate nucleus still responds to human scent. Their oxytocin system still activates around gentle human contact. They are born with the hardware for this bond already installed. It is sitting in their biology, waiting for a human to activate it. Some strays will never meet that human, but the wiring is there, waiting. It has been there for 15,000 years. So here is the real answer to the question. Do dogs see us as family? No. And that is not a sad answer. It is a bigger answer. Family in nature is a genetic contract. You are bonded to the creatures that share your DNA because evolution made it advantageous. Wolves have families. Elephants have families. Apes have families. In every case, the bond is between members of the same species who share blood. Dogs broke that rule. Dogs formed a bond across species. Not because of shared genetics. Not because of survival instinct alone. Because somewhere in the thousands of years of living beside us, something changed in their biology that made humans not just useful but necessary. Not for food. For connection. The oxytocin loop that dogs share with humans does not exist between dogs and other dogs at the same intensity. Dogs produce more oxytocin when gazing at their human than when gazing at another dog. Your dog is not treating you like a member of its pack. It is not treating you like a parent or a sibling or a fellow dog. It has placed you in a category that does not exist anywhere else in the animal kingdom. A category that only dogs created. For only one species. For us. There is no word for what dogs feel toward humans. Family is too small. Pack is inaccurate. Ownership goes the wrong direction. What dogs have with us is a bond that has no name, because nothing in the history of life on Earth has ever done it before. Two completely different species, separated by millions of years of evolution, who looked at each other and decided, independently, on both sides, that the other one mattered. Your dog does not know your name. It does not know how old you are. It does not know what you do for a living, or what mistakes you have made, or what you are afraid of at 3 in the morning. But it knows the sound of your car from every other car on the street. It knows the rhythm of your footsteps before you reach the door. It knows the difference between your happy voice and the voice you use when something is wrong. It knows which side of the bed you sleep on, and it chose to be there. Not because you are its owner, not because you feed it, not because it has no other options, because 15,000 years ago, its ancestors looked at our ancestors and made a choice that nothing in nature had ever made before. And every dog since then has been born with that choice already written into its bones. A choice to need us. Not for survival, for something that science can measure, but still cannot fully explain. The next time your dog looks at you and raises that little eyebrow, remember that the muscle making that expression did not exist 10,000 years ago. Your dog's face evolved just to talk to you. Just to make sure you understood what it was feeling. Just to make sure the bond held. And the fact that you feel something when it does that, the fact that your own oxytocin rises in response, means this is not a one-way relationship. You were made for this too. That is not family. That is something bigger than family. And neither of you had to be taught it. It was already there.